The joint marathon continues on the 1+1 channel. I'm Solomia Witvitska and this is TSN. Terrible consequences of the disaster in Odesa. This morning it became known. The people who went missing after the flood have died. In total, there are 9 victims. The streets in the city are flooded with torn-off market stalls floating along them. The rain started pouring on Monday night into Tuesday, and after a short break, it came down even harder during the day yesterday. The stormwater drainage system couldn't cope with the large amount of water, and the streets of Odesa were flooded. The water reached up to people's waists. A minibus was submerged underwater. Pedestrians were literally swept away by the current. The city experienced a transportation collapse due to the flooded roads. TSN correspondent Olena Chernyaeva is following the developments and is now ready to tell us more live. Olena, hello? So please tell us everything that is known about the victims. And what other consequences of the disaster in the city have you observed?
Hello, Solomia. Yes, indeed, this is the second blow from the elements, and the situation is, without exaggeration, extraordinary. 9 people have died, and unfortunately one of them is a child. Information is available about one of the victims. She is a 23-year-old woman who had been missing since yesterday. She was found this morning with no signs of life. Neighbors reportedly saw her clinging to a tree so she wouldn't be swept away by the current, and she was pleading for help. But unfortunately, even though it has stopped raining now, it poured for almost 2 days, and in some places, 2 months' worth of rain fell. The Odesa City Council strongly urged residents to refrain from traveling during the first half of the day. Today, all school children were switched to remote learning precisely because of the bad weather. Some schools have flooded classrooms and shelters. Not only roads were flooded, shops, medical offices, post offices, everything located below the first floor was affected. Underground parking lots and several residential complexes were flooded. Stalls torn from their foundations were floating down the streets. Videos of rescuing an elderly woman were spreading on social media. She was knocked down by the water current while crossing the street. Fortunately, passers-by were able to pull her out. Rescuers helped people get out of cars stuck in the water and pumped out the water. During rush hour, just as people were returning from work, all electric public transport in the city stopped operating. Pedestrians were walking through the streets with water up to their knees in some places and even above their waists in others. Nearly 30 settlements in the region were left without electricity. There were also power outages in several districts of Odesa. Currently, electric transport has only been partially restored, and several streets in Odesa are still closed to traffic. Solomia?
Thank you, Olena, for the details. TSN correspondent Olena Chernyaeva reported on the consequences, the terrible consequences of the disaster in Odesa, particularly after the downpours. The water there reached almost a meter high, and there are already 9 fatalities. The number of injured has risen to 31 as a result of the Shahed drone attack on Dnipro. Among the victims are already 3 minors, and 1 man has died. His wife reported this on social media. They got married just a week and a half ago. The occupiers attacked the city in the middle of the workday, striking right in the city center where there were lots of people, and also hit a business near the regional center. As a result of the attack, an office building caught fire. 700 square meters were engulfed in flames. Cars on the streets also caught fire, and dozens of apartment buildings nearby were damaged. A medical center, a dental clinic, a lyceum, a university, and many shops and cafes were also damaged. The windows and doors of the art museum were blown out. The aftermath of the attack is still being dealt with.
It's very frightening. There was a very scary whistling sound, and things were falling very loudly.
Our buildings seemed to jump and cracks appeared in our bathroom. We only managed to run out into the hallway, between the walls onto the floor.
Right in the center of the city of Dnipro. Obviously there can't be any military facilities here. This is a very busy intersection, very popular among our city's residents. There were a lot of people here.
The enemy has occupied Poltavka in the Donetsk region and has also advanced near Novoivanivka in the Dnipropetrovsk region and in the Serebryansky forestry in the Luhansk region. This was reported by the analytical portal Deep State. At the same time, Ukrainian defenders have achieved successes in the area of Dobropilya near Pokrovsk, where some Russian units are encircled. By the way, the enemy is experiencing an especially acute shortage of fuel and lubricants there due to precise Ukrainian strikes on Russian oil refineries. The Third Army Corps is demonstrating successful hunting of swarms of enemy UAVs. Its fighters choose the tactic of climbing higher and attacking the airspace intruder from above. Overall, the enemy lost 9 Molniya strike UAVs, which did not reach our positions. In the Novopavlivka direction, the armed forces of Ukraine are beginning to push back Russian troops. Ukrainian drones are blocking the occupiers' advance along logistical routes. As a result, they move on foot within a 20-kilometer zone from the front line to avoid being spotted by drones. And ultimately, only 1 out of 10 invaders reaches the Ukrainian positions. According to fresh data from the General Staff, there were 137 engagements along the entire front line over the past day. And now about enemy losses. Here are today's figures from the General Staff. In the past day alone, Russian occupiers lost 920 soldiers killed and wounded, and since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the Russian army has decreased by 1,111,480 troops. Our defenders also destroyed enemy equipment. Over 11,000 tanks and 23,000 armored combat vehicles have been destroyed in the fighting. Additionally, 33,324 enemy artillery systems, 1,500 multiple rocket launch systems, and 1,224 air defense systems have been eliminated. 65,552 tactical level drones and 3,790 cruise missiles have been neutralized. To date, 427 Russian aircraft and 346 helicopters have been shot down. And at sea, 28 ships and boats and 1 submarine have been neutralized. Unknown drones continue to attack Europe. The night before, a drone paralyzed the operation of an airport in Norway. The police were unable to determine who was operating the drone. Meanwhile, Denmark is launching joint exercises with Ukraine on protecting the skies from drones. Throughout the week, Ukrainian military personnel will be sharing their practical experience with foreigners. And this weekend, unidentified drones were spotted over military facilities and airfields in NATO countries, most frequently in Denmark. After that, Copenhagen announced the closure of the airspace to all civilian UAVs from Monday to Friday. And today, European leaders will gather in this country to discuss the violation of airspace. President Zelensky is also expected to join via video link. The European Commission will allocate an additional €2 billion for Ukrainian drones. This was announced by its president, Ursula von der Leyen, at a joint press conference with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte before the start of the European Commission College meeting. There they are discussing the security of the EU, and right now decisive support for Ukraine could lead to a turning point in the war, von der Leyen emphasized. Earlier, the European Commissioner for Defense, Andrius Kubilius, called for the urgent establishment of a drone wall on the eastern flank of the European Union. They plan to base it on technologies that have already proven effective in Ukraine. Commenting on the issue of creating a drone wall, the NATO Secretary General noted that it is currently unknown who is behind the drone incursions into Denmark. As for Poland and Estonia, Rutte says it is obvious that it is the Russians. But as for what happened in Denmark, experts are still investigating. There have already been several incidents of drone incursions in Denmark. They were spotted over airports and military facilities, which forced a temporary suspension of air traffic. Once again, I am very disappointed in Putin. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, spoke at a gathering of American generals and admirals. Service members were summoned from all over the world for this occasion. The head of the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth, declared war on obesity. Generals who are overweight will have to work on improving their physical fitness. Trump's tasks are even more ambitious. An army that everyone in the world will fear. What else Trump said about the war in Ukraine, our own TSN correspondent in the US, Olha Koshelenko, will tell you next.
The Pentagon gathered hundreds of its generals and admirals from around the world the day before so they could listen to speeches by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and President Donald Trump. The secretary devoted more attention to the new standards in the army. No more gender diversity, literally. No boys in dresses, bearded men, or overweight people, announced the head of the Pentagon. By the way, when Congress was considering his candidacy for this position, his personal file included materials about alleged incidents of Pete Hegseth abusing alcohol. However, the minister assured that he is in excellent shape and demands the same from his subordinates.
Everything starts with physical fitness and appearance. If the minister can regularly perform strenuous physical exercises, then every serviceman in our joint forces can do it too. To be honest, I'm tired of looking at combat formations and seeing overweight servicemen. It is just as completely unacceptable to see overweight generals and admirals in the corridors of the Pentagon and in command headquarters across the country and around the world.
The commander-in-chief told those present that the American army must be so strong that no country would even think of threatening the United States. and he recalled how he had recently deployed 2 nuclear submarines to Russia after, quote, one fool, he didn't name names, but from the context it was clear he was referring to Russian Security Council Deputy Chairman Dmitry Medvedev, made some careless remarks about nuclear weapons. Putin also came under fire. Trump repeated his claims about Russia's insufficient military capability and promised to finally end the war in Ukraine.
I think we will do it, but it turned out to be the most difficult thing. I am very disappointed in President Putin. I thought we would put an end to this. He should have dealt with this war in a week. And I told him, you know, you don't look good. You've been fighting a war for 4 years that should have lasted a week. Are you a paper tiger or what? It's a disgrace. But I think we'll finish this the way it should have been done in theory. Knock on wood, because you never know.
Whether the President of the United States will agree to provide Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk missiles, which, by the way, are capable of carrying a nuclear warhead, Trump did not specify. His special representative, Keith Kellogg, confirmed this while speaking at a security forum in Warsaw. President Zelensky made the corresponding request last week during a meeting in New York, and President Trump is considering it.
So far, there have been no comments on whether this will happen or not. But from public reports, we know that the corresponding request was made. Naturally, the global press picked up on this. Obviously, the Russians also took notice, given the capabilities and power of this weapon system. It is, in fact, revolutionary in and of itself, in my opinion, and in the opinion of those who have seen it repeatedly in various conflicts. That's how good it is.
At the same time, the Wall Street Journal writes, the Pentagon has ordered missile production to be increased 2 to 4 times. Reportedly, the department is concerned that their stockpiles are not full due to a potentially possible conflict with China. From Washington, United States, Olha Koshelenko, Maxim Shinkarenko, TSN 1+1 Marathon United News.
Starting today, the United States government is temporarily suspending its operations. A state known as a shutdown has been declared in the country. Only critically important employees of government institutions will continue to work. The rest are on forced leave. This happened because Congress failed to pass a federal budget, neither a long-term nor a short-term one, which would have allowed them to avoid a shutdown, at least temporarily. Although the Republicans hold a majority in both chambers, it is not enough to do without the votes of the Democrats. They failed to reach an agreement. Donald Trump blames the Democrats for everything and threatens to fire government employees because of the shutdown. How long this situation will last is unknown, but it will seriously impact the financial well-being of those in public service. Nearly 70 people have died as a result of the disaster. A powerful earthquake has shaken the Philippines. The epicenter was in the central part of the country in the Cebu region, which is popular among tourists. The magnitude of the tremors was 6.9. Some buildings collapsed due to the disaster. The region is experiencing problems with electricity and water supply. Hospitals are reported to be overflowing with victims. Authorities have mobilized emergency services to search for the missing. The snow-capped peaks of the Carpathians. On Mount Pip Ivan, snow fell 2 days ago. The air temperature there dropped below zero, and the worsening weather has already made itself felt. The state emergency service had to rescue a tourist and her 15-year-old son who lost their way in the mountains. Therefore, rescuers once again remind all winter hiking enthusiasts, before heading into the mountains, you must check the weather forecast, register your route, and do not embark on a difficult hike without a guide. And of course, you should also make sure to bring warm clothing, enough food, and a fully charged mobile phone. And be sure to download the mobile app Rescue in the Mountains.